What's up guys? In this video we will look into the CAD operations in Elasticsearch. In our previous video, we had go through the installation process of Elasticsearch, Logstash and Kibana. So let's get in guys. So before we talk about the CAD operations in Elasticsearch, we need to talk about REST and RESTful APIs. The reason is that Elastic is built on top of RESTful interface, and that means to communicate with Elasticsearch you need to communicate with it through HTTP request that adhere to a REST interface. So let's talk about what that means. So let's talk about HTTP request at a more high level here. Whenever you request a web page from your browser, what's going on is that your web browser is sending an HTTP request to a web server somewhere that requesting the content of that web page that you want to look at, and Elasticsearch works the same way. So instead of talking to a web server, you are talking to an Elasticsearch server here, but it's the same exact protocol. Now your HTTP request contains a bunch of different stuffs, more than you might think. One is the method, and that's basically the verb of the request, what you are asking the server to do. So in the case of actually getting a web page back from a web server, you would be sending a get request saying that I want to get information back from a server. I'm not going to change anything on that server. I just want to get information back from it. Or you can put, which means always create a new data on the server. Or you can even send a delete verb, that means to remove information from that server. Normally you won't be doing that from your web browser, but we are sending the request from our Elasticsearch client. It also includes a protocol, so specifically what version of HTTP are you are sending this request in. Might be HTTP slash one dot point, like that. For example, if you are sending that request to a specific host, of course, so if you are requesting a web page from any website, that might be go to the specified website. And URL is basically what resource you are requesting from that server, what you want that server to do. There's also a request body you can send along. You don't normally see that with a web page request, but you can send extra data along with it. And finally, there are headers associated with each request that contains sort of metadata about the request itself. With this basic understanding of HTTP and RESTful APIs, we will look into the call command now. The way we are going to interact with Elasticsearch is just using the call command on the command line. Again, instead of using any specific programming language or client library, we just gonna use the call, which is a Linux command for sending HTTP requests from a command line. So we are just going to bash out the call command to send out request on the fly to our server and get response back, and see what comes back from the servers. The structure of the call command looks like this. Basically, it's call dash h means header, and for Elasticsearch that the header will be always content type of application that's JSON. JSON means that whatever in the body is going to interrupted as JSON format. And next to that is we want to give the specify the URL and dash D, and within double quotes we want to give the body. Next, we will see some basic examples of call operations by keeping these concepts in mind. In this example, we are talking and sample data sent from a spacecraft. For example, we are taking this data, assume this data we send from a space shuttle to Earth. And in this example, we are going to insert it to Elasticsearch. So in this one, we are using put verb to 127.0.0.1 IP address on port number 9200, and we are talking to an index called spacecraft and a data type called Mars, and it's using an unique identifier for this new entry called 1. It's same as a unique key. So under then we are including the following information in the message body. For example, the shuttle name, the location of the shuttles, latitude and longitude of the shuttle, and which earth station is receiving the signal from the shuttle, and date and alert, what type of alert it is sending. So these type of values, actually we are inserting this value in a format, JSON format. So that's what some real HTTP request look like when you are dealing with Elasticsearch. Now we get into action and try to import one single document into Elasticsearch. So first I am connecting to my virtual box and starting the Elasticsearch server. So if you want to know how to install Elasticsearch means, please watch my previous videos. So now the server is starting. Okay, now the login prompt came. You log into the server. So I'm planning to connect to the server by my putty. So open our putty session and new session. Zip and Elasticsearch. So here we want to log in. Before that we will change the font to some bigger size. Okay, now we will log into Elasticsearch server. Okay, username and password. Okay, now we log in. Now we will check whether Elasticsearch is running or not. So for that we use this command, systemctl command, status Elasticsearch. So it's not running. So Control C and come out. Okay, now we will start the Elasticsearch. Just change the status to start. And enter. Now we want to authenticate by our DB admin password. Okay, now again we will check the status. Yeah, it is activating. So it will take some time to spin up. In between we will use the curl command to insert some data into Elasticsearch. So for that we use curl -x put and the IP address 127.0.0.1:9200 the port slash space spacecraft. It's a database name in relational databases, same as that spacecraft. Mouse means it's the table name, and one is the ID, unique ID we want to give. So for that I use one, and pretty is for some format. So why this error? Yeah, I missed one single quotes there. With after completing the pretty, we want to close that first quotes, then dash D, and again open the next quote and open parenthesis. So since this is JSON format, we want to include the data in JSON format. So here it is schemaless, so we can directly insert the values without the schema. It's a main benefit in Elasticsearch. So I'm assigning the Mongolian value to shuttle and assigning some values to location near Mars. Any location we can, anything we can give here. Now date. Told 2020 like that, any date we can, because then sample data, so we can give any data, any dates or any data here. Come on, enter. Now we will give the alert. What type of alert? Okay, battery charging start like that. We will give some alert. Okay. Now it's a last value, so no comma, enter. Close that parenthesis and close that quotes. Now we want to give dash height, content type C. Content type C is capital letter, and in type T is capital letter. colon application slash JSON is a JSON format. We want to follow the same. In Elasticsearch, we want to follow the same method. Okay, now the value got inserted. The index name is spacecraft and ID 1. Now we will try to retrieve that value, what we inserted now. So for select or retrieve the value, we want to use a get curl dash x get the IP address 127.0.0.1:9200, the port of Elasticsearch, slash spacecraft. Since we give the spacecraft name there, we want to select the values from spacecraft. So spacecraft slash Mars dash underscore search. We are searching the value, so we want to give search, and now just we enter. So the values are there. What are the values we enter? Settle, Mongolian, location, and date, alert, everything is there. But it is not an human readable form. Okay, now the values are there. All values are listed under the ID value 1 which we give while we are inserting. So what we are going to do is we will make this session more formatable, more readable format. So for that I added question mark pretty there. Now if you see, it's more effectively, it is more readable than before. So for that only we use this pretty command. It's actually an format. So here the ID value will be there, and some other values also, default values also there, which are inserted by Elasticsearch itself. So in this video we go through about how we can insert a value into Elasticsearch engine and how we can retrieve that, and we get some understanding about HTTP and RESTful APIs. Hope guys this video will be little bit informative to you. Thanks for watching.